Over the years, we've made some crazy predictions for Star Wars films and series. Most of them have gone way wrong, but at least we have fun doing it. Today's episode is no different as we break down Chapter 23 of The Mandalorian and make some predictions sure to go wrong for the finale. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was best.
Before we get into the Mandalorian predictions for the playoffs, BB Nate.
Oh. What are we?
Hockey playoffs, let's go. Not basketball.
No.
I know the NBA's starting, but really, does anybody care about that?
More important.
NHL hockey playoffs starting. Predictions. Do we, what are the, really, do we have a shot?
We have a shot. Slim one, but a shot. I don't, I love the Avalanche and everything, but you got to be real at some points. It's going to be a difficult road to get there.
The Stanley Cup playoffs is the hardest playoffs in all of professional sports.
And we've been struggling through it the entire season, but we've made it. We've fought. And so we can fight again.
31-7-4 in our last 42 games.
An amazing record. We've done great. We have a shot. It's just going to be down to the wire, I think. We're going to be running a lot.
So for those of you listening, we had the opportunity to go to the final game of the NHL season. Not just the Avs,
but the entire
NHL season in Nashville. So we went to Redneck Hollywood. Sam, impressions on Nashville?
It's only cool if you really like country music or bars. So
it wasn't cool for you?
It wasn't really my thing. Yeah.
All right.
But, to each their own.
We had a good time, though. They won. Nathan McKinnon got the hat trick. Got a hat trick. Nate the Great got the hat trick. Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool. Well, welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story. And that is why we talk about Star Wars and all the other things that we end up talking about. But it's been Star Wars the last few weeks, especially with the Bad Batch finale, and now we've got the Mandalorian getting ready, the penultimate episode, getting ready to go into the finale this week. So welcome to one of our infamous predictions, sure to go wrong episodes.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll have a lot of fun with that at the end. Sam's had Ren ready all day for this. So.
It's not that original, I guess, but y'all probably know you've heard it before, but okay, I still think it's got a
We'll see what it is. So let's break this thing down. Why don't we talk about where we watched it and how we watched it? Because it was pretty clear. So let me back up, though. They showed this the first night of Star Wars Celebration.
They did.
To several thousand rabid Star Wars fans at Star Wars Celebration. And I predicted, when I found out that was the case, that everybody was going to get spoiled on this episode before it actually released.
Yeah.
Start with you, Samuel the Hutt. Were you spoiled?
When did they show this to the fans?
Friday of Celebration. So 4 or 5 days before.
No, I didn't see a thing. I only got off social media Wednesday when it dropped because I heard Nathan over there just could not stop talking about how great it was. So I knew I had to not get spoiled on anything. But prior to that, I didn't see a single thing for that episode.
Okay. BB Nate, did you get spoiled?
No, I did not. I did not get spoiled. No.
I didn't even know they showed it to the fans. Which
no, I did.
Well, I think Nathan and I had talked about it, but I didn't get spoiled either. And so here's one of the things that's interesting, because we talked about this on our last episode about how it was like the official Star Wars accounts that were like spoiling the Bad Batch finale, but then you get thousands of Star Wars fans. Thank you, Star Wars fans. for doing it the right way.
Yes.
And not spoiling this, allowing this amazing episode to be experienced the way that it was. So let's talk a little bit about how we watched this. I think BB Nate, you watched it first.
I was first.
So
yes.
walk me through your day, because I was okay. Just to give context, Sam has college classes all day Wednesdays. Nathan has, his classes, his homeschool stuff, and all the other stuff that he does around the house. But he also has different opportunities. I was in Fort Lauderdale, Miami for work stuff when it came out, and my meetings were going till 10:30 that night. So,
that was going to be tough.
You saw it first, BB Nate.
I did. Well, I saw part of it, and then I finished it later. I was just doing my schoolwork stuff, and Mom left to go shopping. I stayed back.
And so you're like, screw it, I'm watching The Mandalorian.
Yeah, basically. I wanted to finish my stuff up, and I watched part of Mandalorian. Since it was a 50-minute episode, I just watched half of it.
Okay.
While I was eating lunch, and then I finished up my stuff, and I finished the rest of it while folding laundry. So
where did you leave off? Where
did I leave off?
Spoilers from this point forward.
Yes,
of course. I left off right before The Mandalorian started. Well, Din Djarin was talking to Bo about her surrendering. That was
a really important moment.
Okay.
Yeah, before that moment. So you can tell I really wanted to finish it, but I decided I was going to be responsible and finish up my other stuff first. But I loved the episode. I mean,
when you finished it, what were your thoughts?
I was just shocked. I was just dumbfounded. It was so great. It felt so much like Star Wars.
Okay.
Like for real. I mean, the last episode before this was good. I enjoyed it. I just thought it was fun, and I forgot about it like 30 minutes after I watched it. But this episode stuck with you because it just felt like Star Wars. Reintroduced Moff Gideon and made him a really great classic Star Wars villain, gave him a look that you can now recognize as iconic, has a form to it. He was intimidating. He was smart. He had all of that stuff. And then you have the big moments with Paz Vizsla dying and Din Djarin now being captured and the Mandalorians on the run, leading up to this amazing season finale. And you had Grogu in the IG-12 suit and now can kind of communicate again. So, it's just so much fun.
It is pretty cool. Sammy, okay, so you watched it by mid-afternoon, early afternoon.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Sam, when did you watch it, and walk me through it?
So I wasn't sure I was going to get to it that day.
I had to convince you.
I figured I was going to be too busy. I'll get to it when I get to it. But when Nathan kept texting me throughout the day about how absolutely amazing this episode is, I'm like, I've got to find time to watch this. Like, I got to make it work. So after school, I'm getting home around 4:35ish. I was like, okay, I'll eat while I'm I'll watch it while I'm eating dinner, right? So I put it on. Mom was, doing her thing. I was sitting there eating. I think I picked up like Burger King or something, and I just put it on. And I told Nate I was watching, and then I was texting him throughout all the big moments, just because he wanted me to keep him updated. And so, all the big moments that Nathan mentioned, IG-12, Thrawn, obviously, all that.
Huge. What a way to open the episode.
Yeah. Well, I think it was interesting, the timing of this episode. I think the last week's episode could have been implemented in this episode.
Yeah.
All you really would have needed were them to go to the planet, be like, fight, what's his name? Wolf? Or who? Not Wolf.
Axe.
Thank you. Have Bo-Katan fight Axe, take the fleet, and then the rest of this episode happens, right? The only reason there was all the, CSI stuff was to put a filler episode to move this episode closer.
Don't you dare say filler, because that was I am in the very small minority. I loved that.
I love the episode. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying they added all of that in just so that this week's episode could be in line with Celebration, and you could have the big Thrawn thing right after all of the Thrawn news.
Oh yeah.
So it was a very intentional placement of this episode.
I think that you're right when you say that they had to have that episode so that they could have Thrawn announced before this episode came out, and that was it. Yeah. So anyway, you watched it.
I loved the episode. I was freaking out, every big moment, especially the Praetorian Guards. As soon as they popped out, I was like, no way. I paused it. I was texting Nathan. I remember when Moff Gideon dropped down, right? I just texted Nate, bro, just like over and over again, like just like I can't believe it. He looks so cool. You know, that's such a cool way. But you're right, Nate. He is like he's up there with the villains, not in just the way that he looks cool, because Star Wars has a theme with making villains look cool.
Very
it's
true.
kind of concerning. But he's hugely influential now to the story. He's responsible for Snoke. He's responsible for the First Order. He's responsible for the Praetorian Guards. I mean, you can pretty much trace him to anything that happens in the sequel trilogy regarding the First Order and the Empire and all of that. It took this seemingly insignificant Moff and made him critical to the rest of the story, which I love. I thought that was brilliant, all in like the span of one episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before I give my story of how I watched it, I think I do, based on everything that you just shared, I'd like to take a moment, have a moment of silence for a moment of mourning for all of the clickbait and YouTubers, clickbait sites and YouTubers out there that have tried to pass off this narrative that Disney is going to eliminate the sequel trilogy and redo those, because at this point that's just not, I mean, it was never going to happen. But if they continue to make that stuff, they're
just ignorant.
Well, they already are, but I can't even believe how clear it is, especially after this episode.
Yeah, I was telling Nate and I was texting Tristan as well. It's brilliant the way they're doing this. You're taking one criticized, albeit throwaway line in Return, Rise of Skywalker, right? Somehow Palpatine returned. That's it. That's all we get for all of this. It takes such a seemingly insignificant throwaway line, and they decide to make an entire saga about it. It's just like what happened with
the Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars.
Yep.
You took one throwaway line from Obi-Wan. Granted, it wasn't criticized, but who's going to criticize it? That was the first movie, right? You know, I fought with your father in the Clone Wars. Now you've got the entirety of the prequels. You've got the Clone Wars series. You've got all of that stuff from that one throwaway line. Now you're going to Rise of Skywalker, and this throwaway line is now, oh my gosh, like as soon as he says that, you're gonna be like, wow, Mandalorian, Andor, or not Andor, Ahsoka, you know, all these stories are gonna pop in your head from that one line that everybody didn't like or whatever at the start. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So I was at a work meeting, like I said earlier. We started at 8 a.m. and we had 3-minute breaks multiple times throughout the day and a working lunch, which meant we had no break really. And then, and I love my company and I love the people I work with, but it was long and exhausting. And then we finished up at 7:15, got in cars to head to dinner, which was not just a dinner. It was not pizza. I thought we were going to get pizza. We got there and it was a pizza experience, 3 hours long, where you're making your pizzas. You're like creating the dough. You're doing, it was a blast. I had so much fun and got back to the hotel.
I was very disappointed.
About 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And started to try to watch on my phone. And I started falling asleep, and I'm like, this episode deserves more. I got through the opening stuff with Moff Gideon and the Shadow Council and all that stuff that we've got to talk about.
Also, okay, well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So, and then I was like literally falling asleep, and it wasn't because this episode was bad. I knew that. It was because I couldn't keep my eyes open. So instead, woke up at 5:30 in the morning, got up, got some coffee, did the stuff I had to do, and found time to watch it before the day started. So that's how I watched it. Obviously our reactions are fantastic. Let's just jump right in. First of all, I mean, we have to talk about the recaps before.
See, I have an interesting standpoint.
Okay, go for it.
Different standpoint. I don't like watching the recaps. It almost, not so much with this episode, but previous episodes, it seems to kind of telegraph what's coming.
Okay,
like
that's fair.
It makes it obvious what they're going to talk about in this next episode, and I don't like that. I mean, we're keeping up with the series, right? We were watching it week to week. I remember what's happening. I don't need the recap. Okay. Therefore, I want to go into it completely unaware of what's about to happen.
Okay, what about you, Nate?
I'm kind of indifferent. I'll skip it or I'll watch it. I don't really care. I just watched it because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I didn't, so I was fine.
I also skipped it because I had a lot of homework to do, and I needed to save every second.
So what's interesting though is watching the recap. They were hitting points from all of the episodes that people were like, this has nothing to do with the Mandalorian. This has nothing to do with the story. Yeah. They kept going back and hitting those points.
Give an example.
People liked the Coruscant episode with Dr. Pershing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And all that. But they were like, how does that fit into the story? And then you've got Axe and all this. I mean, it just felt like there was all these moments that were criticized that were in the recap. And I'm like, they're going to tie it all together.
It's the Purgle moment.
In this thing. And, that's exactly what they happened. All right. So we open up, we find out, I can't remember the name of the
I don't remember either.
And it's killing me. It's Katie O'Brien is the actress. I just can't remember her character's name tonight. So we're recording Sunday evening. We just watched it all over again on our patio with a beautiful sunset. It was great. One of the most.
It was really nice.
It was a religious experience in some ways. But anyway, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
There we go. Okay. All right. So we watched it. So Katie O'Brien finds out Moff Gideon's there. I wasn't really shocked by that.
No.
It was fun when they switched over and it was Moff Gideon being Moff Gideon now and not in the hologram.
Yeah.
With it. BB, you brought up something interesting that I didn't pick up about where he was.
So he's on.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
He's on Mandalore at the beginning sequence.
Now you didn't realize that then. You realized.
No, I realized it after when they. But like right as I saw the stormtroopers, I'm like, no way, Moff Gideon was on Mandalore the entire time.
Really?
Because it makes sense. They were telegraphing that it's uninhabitable, and I was wondering why so much the Empire was wanting the Mandalorians not to retake Mandalore. What the big deal was, because it's a random planet and the Mandalorians aren't really affecting the Empire all that much right now. And they're kind of they're affecting pirates, which are apparently the Empire, but nothing much.
Yeah,
and
for the most part, they're minding their business.
Right, they're minding their own business. And so why was it so important? And then I figured out that it was Moff Gideon on Mandalore because there's magnetic interference that can't have radar scan on ground from above.
So it's it's the perfect place for the Empire to hide and rebuild.
Place. Exactly.
Which is why he had to take out
Exactly. That's
Mandalore.
why they were all on it for him having reinforcements at that point, because they understood, oh no, the Mandalorians could retake Mandalore at this point and we'd lose all of this progress.
Smart. Yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that either until Nate pointed it out. But you'd have also got access to Beskar, which creates stronger troopers, makes things harder. I mean, He even mentioned it, like, it seems like the original idea was to make an army of, like, Force-sensitive Beskar-clad troopers. A clone army of Jedi Beskar troopers. Like, that's unstoppable.
Isn't that kind of what he says at the end?
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Obviously, that doesn't happen, or maybe that's kind of what the Sith troopers are.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that.
In Rise of Skywalker. But I mean, if that came to fruition, how do you stop that? I mean, you're basically taking every like overpowered thing in Star Wars and mashing it all into one.
And I mean that's
you just got to give them little like miniaturized Death Star laser cannons, and then you've basically got everything.
Well, we just need J.J. Abrams to come back just so that they can do that because he lens flares and super weapons. That's what he's all about. So with that, so anyway,
he had a super weapon in the Star Trek he did the first one.
He did, yeah. Super weapons are a big deal for him. So big revelations, obviously, with the Shadow Council. The first big revelation we have to talk about, not a big revelation that he's coming back, because we heard that in Ahsoka, and we know Lars Mikkelsen is going to be playing him.
Yeah.
But that he was brought into the storyline with the Mandalorian in this. Thrawn is officially back now in Star Wars conversation in the episodes, and in a full way, not just Ahsoka mentioning him, but in a big way.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that revelation? I'll start with you, Sam.
I mean, it was like oh my gosh, no way, they name dropped it, but it wasn't like you said, it wasn't too much of a surprise. We've been getting Thrawn news all week. It was the big talk of Celebration for a while, so it wasn't like as if we had not heard anything about Thrawn since he was mentioned by Ahsoka in season, what was it? 2.
It was 2.
That would have made it even bigger, but it was still like, oh wow, they're like jumping right on that. That's what I was saying, why they wanted to put this episode where it was. They're like really wanting to hammer in the fact that Thrawn is a big deal. He's coming, because not everybody follows Celebration. The people who are watching this show don't necessarily keep up with Celebration news. They're just, casual Mandalorian fans. So they need to reintroduce Thrawn and be like, hey, this dude's important and he's coming up. Keep your eye out, like listen for this character to show up more. So it was really like good placement.
What are your thoughts on Thrawn?
I was, of course, super excited to see that he's kind of the main bad guy of this saga.
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting for his return. Moff Gideon isn't super kind of sold on that idea yet. His right hand man though is excited about it, which I found out.
Let's
from a
talk
post.
about that. Captain Pelion.
Yes, apparently he had control of the Chimera when Thrawn was away.
We're talking the expanded universe, the Legends, Heir to the Empire, the trilogy.
Chimera is his ship, right?
Yes, and then Thrawn came back, took control of the Chimera again, but made Captain Pelion, or I think that's his name, his right-hand man for the entire Heir to the Empire.
But this is a huge story because Captain Pelion is a huge part of the Heir to the Empire trilogy. He is he is the right hand of Thrawn in that entire trilogy. So that was a huge revelation.
It's kind of a little like, okay, well, we're going Heir to the Empire.
It does feel that way to some extent.
Do we know if something happened to Eli Vanto in the later books that we didn't get to?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that. I've lost track of that storyline. So
they're so heavy. They're such heavy reads.
Yeah. The other big character that was revealed in the same moment was Commandant Armitage.
Yeah.
Hux. Or no, it's Brendel. Armitage is
real Hux.
Is real Hux. This is Brendel. Commandant Brendel Hux. Thoughts on that? Do you know much about? Recall what his character is like? Is a part of in the story?
Well, I mean, they said that he was part of, or he's heading Project Necromancer or whatever, which obviously is bringing back the Emperor, right? Or at least that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, we don't know anything specific. It hasn't shown up in anything else. But necromancy is like magic. It's wizardry. It's like calling forth of the dead.
And he even said cloning's your thing. You know, when Gideon was talking to Hux. So it's definitely in regards to the whole bringing back Palpatine, which makes
Dathomir. That'd be cool. Go to Dathomir.
But it's cool that, you know, it's like a family job, you know, the family business. You got Hux Jr. Jumping in. You know,
but do you guys understand the storyline of Brendel Hux and Armitage Hux that's already been revealed in the Aftermath books, some of the other storylines and stuff like that? So I get them confused. Brendel. I mean, Brendel, the dad, the one from the Shadow Council. Brendel Hux is the one that builds the entire school, like training program for the stormtroopers and creates the program where they start stealing the kids with this, which is where we get Finn and we get, is it Jane? What's the name of Naomi Aki's character in Rise of Skywalker? I can't remember what it is. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about, though, right? But that's the storyline, right? These Lando's daughter is taken in this. So now we've got Brendel Hux in the story with this, and they're bringing him in with this Project Necromancer, which we haven't heard before, which I do think is the cloning program to try to bring back the Emperor. With that, do you know what happens to Brendel Hux?
No,
I have no clue.
Armitage Hux kills him and takes his place.
Really?
Murders him.
Wow.
And takes his place.
Wow. Alrighty.
So, and
healthy family relationship.
The actor playing Brendel Hux is Domhnall Gleeson's younger brother.
That's awesome.
So there's some fun stuff in that whole situation. I'm not sure if there's anything like in the conversation.
Huge, no.
Is one of the Shadow Council members a Inquisitor? It looks like it. You see him like twice for like 2 seconds.
I don't know. I didn't notice that at all.
But he's got completely different garb. He's got like shoulder plates. I'm pretty sure I saw a couple lightsabers hanging from his belt.
I'll look at it again.
Oh, that would be cool.
I'm not 100%.
I have to watch a Star Wars Explained video or something.
Yeah, he'll break it down.
Yeah.
But
Cal Kestis, that got dark.
It happened in the game.
Well, in a flashback.
In a
force vision.
A premonition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But,
all right. And then we get the Mandalorian title sequence.
Yeah.
At this point, that's all the stuff that happened.
That's all like in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Now the episode is called The Spies. It's plural. I think that's important for us to understand with this. Obviously, what we see happening now is we go on Navarro. They unite the tribes, the way or with the
Covert,
the covert and
Death Watch.
the Death Watch factions.
Is it Death Watch or
well,
Night
whatever.
Owls?
You know what I'm
Night
talking
Owls.
about. The Night Owls. They come together in one group and they leave. Bo-Katan calls them to join forces to go and retake Mandalore at this point. And so they leave and they go do that. At this point, you know, we kind of move into some interesting stories with that. They get on their,
survivors.
Before that though, you know, they're having conversations about what it's going to be like. They're going to find the forge. They're going to do all this other stuff. And then they find the survivors that are on there. Tell me what your thoughts were when we saw these pirates. Now, the head of the pirates is the general from Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, I knew he looked familiar.
With that, what did you think about the pirates being on there?
I don't know. I don't think they're pirates. They're just survivors. I'm going to call them that because they don't have any ill intentions, really. They're just surviving on Mandalore because they have some type of connection with it, which makes sense. It is their home world. I was interested to see that. It's interesting to see adding new lore to Mandalore because we don't know enough about it right now as is, but adding this ability to have survivors that have been there opens up a ton of stories that they could tell right now of the survivors of Mandalore. It allows them to tell books if they wanted, expand it in the comic series that they're doing for the Mandalorian right now if they want to, or it just allows them to tell more stories about Mandalore, which we know very little about right now. And so it would be really, I'd love to see more of them. I'd love to see more of their story and kind of what happened with them and how they've survived. And if they found the living waters, if they found that underground city, how that worked out, and kind of just more about them. I thought they were pretty cool characters.
What did you think about them?
I mean, initially I was, my first watch through, I was very on edge, who's the spy, right? So I was initially like, these guys are planted by the Imperials to be bait or whatever to catch the Mandos, right? And I was the whole time the armorer was flying up to the fleet. I was like, when are one of those injured Mandos gonna pop up and knock out the armor and then board the ship and take it over, right? I thought those injured guys were not decoys, but were faking it and were going to infiltrate. So I was convinced that the survivors were plants, but I mean that could still happen. Still one more episode left, but it seems like that's not the route they're going with them. But man, I was on edge, the whole time they were on screen.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that until the second viewing. As far as a possibility, I took them at face value on first viewing. Second viewing, I'm kind of like, I wonder here if there's a little bit more to them. Yeah, so it could be interesting to see how that plays out. The big moment is when the armor. One of the big moments is when the armorer takes those survivors to the fleet, and that is following. Isn't that following the dinner?
Yeah, the dinner and the fight.
Yeah, there's some really interesting speculation, religious imagery that's being discussed with that.
Yeah, you got like the disciples and
the Last Supper, and it's weird. Who's sitting in the position of Judas and all of those types of things.
Leave the Star Wars fans to overanalyze everything and somehow bring religion into it, right, Dad?
Well, this whole season specifically has really been talking religion heavy with that. What did you think? What did you think was going to happen when the armor left and she started going through the atmosphere into space? What did you think was going to happen when she got through the other side? Did you have any speculation?
No, I didn't. I thought that she was just going to get back. I thought they were kind of abandoning that plot line for now and just having it focus on the Mandalorians, which they basically did. We didn't see anything happen to her. We didn't see anything happen of that. Even when she cleared the atmosphere, it was still fine. The fleet was all there. So we don't know what happens. Not sure of anything that will happen at that point. Because there is a lot of people that could still fight up there to save the Mandalorians, but I don't know. We'll see.
They get she gets through the atmosphere, seems to be docking and landing in the fleet, and then we return back to Mandalore. And while they're there, they make it to the forge, and one of these big giant creatures, because it's the Mandalorian, big giant monsters comes out, messes everything up with its tail, destroys the ship. They have to flee, but they end up
in the Great Forge.
In the city. And they get down there, and when they arrive, suddenly they see what at first they think might be other Mandalorians.
They thought they were survivors.
It was not.
No.
It was
Super Troopers.
Super Troopers covered in Beskar, which really is.
It reminded me of
awesome.
Rebels.
They did.
Why? Explain.
You don't remember the arc in? I think it was season 4
Yeah,
of
it was season
Rebels.
4.
We actually watched the
Vizsla clan.
episode at Celebration. We were showing the episode. Remember when some of the Ren clan turned and went with the Empire, and they got those
some
different.
of the Vizsla clan.
I think so,
Yeah.
and they got those new suits. Do you know?
Oh, yeah, I kinda remember that now.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
It reminded me a lot of that storyline from Rebels. Although I don't think these troopers are Mandalorians turned
No,
Empire.
I think they're just stormtroopers.
Those were in. I'm correct in Rebels. It was Mandalorians turned Empire. This is just troopers with like Mandalorian tech and armor
Again,
and
though,
stuff.
Rebels being important to this series.
Absolutely.
I also kind of got vibes from the original proto Boba Fett, the white
Little
Boba
bit.
Fett.
Oh, yeah.
with that. I got some
Yeah,
vibes
yeah.
from that, like they were doing white Beskar again and that kind of thing, which I thought was a really
Love
cool
that.
nod to it. Yeah, the big moment is when Moff Gideon comes down. You guys have kind of already talked. I mean, they had some battling and stuff.
Yeah, they're
that was
just
going
battles.
on.
And,
Yeah,
and
I
Din
mean-
was captured at this moment, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's
Mando
true. He's
was
captured. That's true. That's what
And then
that
Gideon-
happens before
Gideon lands.
Now let's back up
Freaking
though,
cool.
because as soon as the battle starts, one of the Mandalorians
Decides to dip.
he leaves.
He's like, I'm gonna go
heads
get
out.
help.
Peace out, y'all. I'm leaving.
I didn't think about this the first time.
I thought about it the second time.
Watching it the second time, Sam, what was your initial,
Convenient.
like, what did you say as soon as you saw Axe Wolf?
Oh my gosh.
leaving?
They let him leave. There was no way. There was like 15 troopers flying around with that hole, and he just whizzes past them without a shot fired at him. Come on. He is 100% a spy.
What are your thoughts on that, Nate?
I don't know if I'd say 100%. They could just be trying to lead us off the trail. It is Filoni after all. You really
That's true.
can't say you know anything and don't have any headcanon because he'll throw it out of the window. So very possibly could be a spy, but he also could just be wanting to help and get backup. It very well could happen, but also he's had some animosity against Bo-Katan this entire season because
and especially now that he
exactly now that
lost
he's
to her.
Yeah, did you guys see his reaction when Bo-Katan made the revelation that she had surrendered to Moff Gideon to the rest of the Mandalorians?
No, I didn't catch it.
Did you? Everyone's looking at him, including Sasha's
whatever her character.
I can't remember any of their names. I
don't remember
tonight, but she was looking at him like at Bo-Katan, kind of like you shouldn't be saying this, but also like she was grieving with Bo as Bo was saying it, is the way she looked. And you see Axe, and Axe is looking away. He won't make eye contact. I thought that was really suspect with that. With it, yeah, they captured Din. The wall,
After a well-put-up fight.
the barrier comes down. Din is in there. They all capture him, and Moff Gideon shows up.
Does a cool speech.
Looks
Villain
awesome
speech
doing
looks
it.
awesome.
Monologues for a little bit.
Because he's a bad guy.
Classic. With that, they take Din away, and there's this moment between Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan again. Talk to me about your thoughts on that moment, having seen it twice.
I mean, it's obvious that Bo-Katan has some more authority right now than Din, and Moff Gideon knows that, and so he's kind of talking to her about what's going to happen against the Mandalorians more than anyone else because it makes sense. She's the leader, and he knows that, and he understands that she's the rightful heir at this point, and so he understands that she's the biggest threat right now. And Din is a huge threat. He's been a thorn in Gideon's side the entire series, but Bo is now leading him, and so that's even more dangerous. And so he understands that she's the one that he needs to take out at this point.
Yeah, well, there's the history behind them that you need to keep in mind. I mean, at this point, I'm sure Bo-Katan feels like he's taken Mandalore from her twice now, in a way. She was ready to reclaim it. She was ready. She's like, we got some inhabitants to deal with, but we're gonna be good. Just some boats, some creatures. We'll be all right. And she realizes the Empire's set up here for years. It seems like all because of Moff Gideon. So there's definitely going to be some bad blood there, and she's going to be rightfully upset this next episode, I hope. But you're right, Nate. Gideon realizes that she's still a threat, especially now that she has a Darksaber and she's managed to unite two warring factions that nobody ever thought would get along. So, he does have the upper hand right now, but that doesn't mean that he's got it in the bag. And he knows that.
I think it's important to note that in that confrontation, this episode becomes the redemption of Bo-Katan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Bo-Katan was given the exact same offer that she surrendered to. Surrender the Darksaber, all of that kind of stuff. And instead, this time she's like, no, we're going to fight. We're going to stand up. We're going to do all this kind of thing. That's important with it. They begin to fight. She uses the Darksaber to cut a really cool hole in the thing. They all get out except for
Paz. He dies.
Paz Vizsla.
Dies in a blaze of glory, though.
To talk about that whole sequence.
Awesome
what were your
sequence.
thoughts?
He's really cool. He's an expendable side character, but they gave him a really great send off. He isn't one that I've been like super connected to, but connected enough, and they've told us enough about him that I was disappointed to see him go. And he went out with a fight and wouldn't have had it any other way. I am sad for his kid. That's going to be interesting how they handle that, because we spent an entire episode saving his kid and for really nothing at this point. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that is handled at this point.
Yeah, but he stood his own in typical.
Not against the Praetorian Guards, though.
No, but that I love that. That was brilliant. It took him no time. Took them no time to dispatch Paz Vizsla when we saw him bringing down 30, Beskar troopers. And it just goes to show how big of a threat they are in The Last Jedi. I mean, Rey and Kylo brought down, there was like, what, 7,
I think
8 of them?
Quite a few.
There was a lot, and Paz had trouble, couldn't even stand up for like 3 seconds against 3, Granted, he's not a Jedi, but you get my point. It was cutting through Beskar like it was butter, It really makes that scene in The Last Jedi even cooler. We're going to watch it in a completely different light now, because when you're watching, you can see that Kylo and Rey have trouble getting through the armor with their lightsabers, like Beskar. They have to use the Praetorian Guards' weapons against them because it cuts through their armor. It really enhances that part of The Last Jedi.
It also ties, as we have Project Necromancer, the cloning stuff, Snoke, and the Praetorians, it ties them all together for The Last Jedi. We don't know how that's going to come together, but we know it does.
Yes.
And we're starting to see the beginnings of that. And that's the way the episode ends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great way.
So we're 3 seasons, almost 3 full complete seasons, 1 episode short of it, into The Mandalorian. Where do you say this episode ranks for you in all of the episodes? Like, when you think of the greatest episodes of The Mandalorian, where do you put this? We've got the Grogu episode in the first season. We've got
Boba's return.
We've got Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2. And I think that those are the 3 big. Ahsoka in season 2. With that, where does this go with you?
I think Ahsoka is my top, just because even if you take Ahsoka out of it, it was such a personal story, even about Jedi and about Grogu and all of that stuff. It was a great, very well done episode. But I think this is right under that. I think it goes Ahsoka episode and then this, because this just felt so much like Star Wars and solidified The Mandalorian as a great Star Wars show and product that will be iconic for generations. It made it feel like its own thing now, but also was super exciting to watch.
This is the first time that this series really truly ties into the larger Star Wars story.
It answers a question I've had since the beginning of why did we need this show, and now we know.
Where do you rank it?
Oh gosh, it's tough. I mean, the finale of season 2 was incredible. It's going to be tough to top that, but I think this is either a close second or a tie. And not only because it was awesome, but you're right, Nate. It really does make a difference in Star Wars. I mean, it answered so many little questions from specifically The Last Jedi, which I love.
I thought that was like a retcon,
right? But it also answered the questions tied into the larger Star Wars universe while still feeling completely Mando at the same time. It had all the Mando stuff you come to expect: the cool fights, the cool looking troopers, the cool Mandos, right? But added so much to the lore of Star Wars, all in 1 episode. So
less than an hour.
Less than an hour
with that.
How do we know how long the finale is supposed to be?
We don't.
We don't know yet.
I'm gonna say, and I hope this isn't recency bias,
Right.
but I'm going to say it's the top for me. And here's why. The Grogu revelation at the end of episode 1 was phenomenal.
Oh, a huge deal.
But it was just a revelation of a character. Mm-hmm. The Ahsoka thing was amazing. I got to see live action Ahsoka. It
and
sets
have a
up,
duel.
The duel was amazing. Everything, right? It sets up the Ahsoka series and all of that. I love that, but that's all it is.
That's it.
Boba Fett returning, really cool moment. Luke Skywalker, the ultimate super cameo.
You right.
Depends on who you ask.
Okay, he's not Ezra Bridger.
Not Ezra Bridger.
But that. You know what I'm saying.
I understand,
right?
yes.
This one mattered.
Right.
Yep.
This episode matters more than anything that's happened outside. Can I say this? Outside of the Skywalker saga.
Well, yeah.
It matters more than, Rogue One, I guess.
Rogue One matters a lot.
Right, it does, yeah. Rogue
Just
One ties into the beginning with the Death Star. With it. Solo of the Star Wars story doesn't really tie into the larger story. It does, but it's not really significant.
Clone Wars is huge.
Clone Wars is just a fleshing out of stuff we already knew. Rebels doesn't, as much as I love it, I love it.
Tread carefully here.
It really doesn't tie not yet, but it hasn't tied into the larger story.
This has been the Purgle of the series.
Okay. You know what I'm saying, though.
I do.
This one matters.
It does.
It really did.
It matters both
so
in universe and it matters out of the universe because it shuts up the people that need to be shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
With this.
At this point.
It's beautiful. All right. The episode's called Spies. The Spies.
Yeah.
Who are the spies?
Axe.
The more and more I think about it, the more the armor is really suspicious because think about it earlier, a few episodes ago, the armor was really, really quick to be like, you know what, Bo? It's fine if you take off your helmet. It's completely okay. How about you go get your other Mandalorian buddies, bring them here, and we'll go retake Mandalore because that's the best idea right now. Something she never thought about, something she'd never considered. She allowed Bo to break the rules because she thought that she could bridge the gap between the Mandalorians. That's just a little bit. That's what the Empire wanted. At this point, they wanted to get rid of the Mandalorians, so might as well just get them all in one place at this point. She did leave early in this episode to take two injured Mandalorians away. There were
more than that.
At least that we saw in the cockpit.
I think that there was implied that there were quite.
There
a
were
few.
several, but still, she's taking injured Mandalorians away, which could just be from part of the goodness of her heart and her Mandalorian. I think she is a Mandalorian, but just sold out to the Empire. So that very well could be it.
Which is not an unprecedented thing. It happens in season 4 of Rebels.
Yes, so it's very possible. It's very Dave Filoni-esque, and so. She feels very likely to be, but also it's Dave Filoni, so he could just be making us think that.
Okay,
so you really don't know.
Sam, you disagree?
Yeah, the spies are Axe, who flew away, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get help. Yeah, and the other spy, was obvious. It was the chick from the beginning. I don't remember her name.
Well, yeah, we all know
she's the spy. She's the other spy. Those are your two spies.
But spies don't have to mean just one or two. They don't have to mean two.
But it doesn't have
to mean more.
I know. But I think those are the spies. You got the one that we know is the spy.
So it could be Axe and the armor.
I don't think it's the armor. I just
been
don't
in contact.
I just don't get that vibe. I don't know why. Like, I just don't know why she would have been doing this all of a sudden. It's not
so give me the argument for why Axe would do it. You've already talked about what he did. But why you think he is based on what he did?
It's the power, like Gideon was like, look, I know you want to rule this place. Sell out your buddies. I'll let you rule it with me, bud, and we can do this together. It'll be fun. It's the Emperor to Luke idea. It's the Vader to Luke idea. It's like rule it with me, right? That's all it is. Sell out your buddies. You can rule it with me. There you go. Because he obviously wants to rule. He has the fleet. And now that was taken away.
He has an Imperial fleet.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that's the reasoning behind it.
I think it could be both. Axe, I agree. I very much think that Axe could be the spy. It's just either one or both. It would be one in each group.
Here's why I don't think it's the armor. The opening sequence before the title, when Katie O'Brien's character Aliyah, I think is what her name is, or something like that, is speaking to Gideon. There seems to be confusion between both her and Gideon on what's been happening with the Mandalorians. They don't know what's going on. He doesn't seem to understand things, and the armorer has not been communicating back.
I get
and
that.
so I think that right there shows there's something else that's been going on, and I don't think the armorer has been feeding information to them.
I get that.
With that, so I tend to think it could be, but I love the fact that we're going into the finale and it has not been clear. It's not telegraphed.
No.
With that.
That was a long episode for one topic.
Well, we got more to do. So it's a prediction sure to go wrong episode.
Make it quick.
Sam, you've had something on your head, so I'm going to make you go after Nate. Nate,
after me, got it.
Your prediction sure to go wrong.
It's going to be a little bit shorter, but I think I got this. And shorter is pun intended at this point. I really do think that Grogu is going to be so distraught with Mando being gone that he's going to go off on his own in his IG-12 suit. I stole your idea.
You
didn't
stole
I?
mine.
Well, I came up with it before you. And so use blasters and everything, go around and just light up the Empire from a pure and use the Force because he can, and just go in for just Mando. That's all he's there for. And just
because that's what Mando did for him.
That's what Mando did for Grogu, and he would do the same thing for him. I'd love it. I'd be so excited.
We've already seen him stand up to Mandalorian.
Right.
In this episode. I love that. I'm glad
so
you came
good.
up with it too, because I'm not as crazy as I thought I
It's
was.
a lot better than my idea.
Okay, you go. Then I'm curious to hear yours.
I don't know if Mando's making it out.
You be quiet.
I don't know.
Shut up. Because that's not the case. We know this isn't the case.
How do you know that?
Because Dave Filoni came out in an interview today and said that he thinks that the fans are going to be happy with the ending of this episode. Of the finale.
That doesn't mean that they can
so happy ending.
A good send off.
Happy ending.
Nobody's upset that Paz is gone. I mean, they're
there
sad.
are. There's a lot of people upset that Paz is gone.
enough.
And if Mandalorian dies, everybody's going to be very frustrated. It might be a great episode. It could be a great send off. But people would still be very, very frustrated.
You're
just
right.
for Grogu more than anything.
I had a backup.
You had a backup.
I had a backup.
Good job.
Okay.
And you brought it up in in your comments on the actual episode.
Okay.
But my backup is I think that the pirates,
survivors.
were actually plants. I think that they were there the
Like
whole time. How did they
literal
survive
plants?
on Mandalore?
Yeah.
How did they survive on all that time? How did they get them into the place where they need to be in order for... You know, they lead
so
them
accepting
straight into. It's kind of like, oh, strangers. Okay, here we go. Let's welcome you guys in.
Yeah.
And then they bring them in and set them up. It's a
it would make sense.
it's a shooting box.
They could be the spies, yeah.
why
So
didn't-
that's my prediction.
Mando see anything of him when he was down there. you
Exactly.
know?
That's all of a sudden they're there.
Right.
And that would
They could be
further-
prisoners that were brought in.
that would further disprove the armorer being a spy because she certainly didn't let on that she knew that they were bad guys.
Right. So that's it. Well, when this releases, it'll be Tuesday morning.
It will be.
There'll be like 14 hours for people to join into our speculation before the finale comes out. Are we watching the finale
Early?
Wednesday morning before you go to school, Samuel the Hutt?
I don't know.
I don't see a way we
have
can't.
time. I don't know if I have time. This week is absolutely crazy for me.
And
It
that
is
means
horrible.
And I don't get back from church stuff
we don't.
until about 9:00 on Wednesday night.
What time do you leave, though?
I have to be there by 1.
You've got to be kidding me.
So there we go. We'll have some
So
fun.
3 a.m., we're good? All right, we'll see you then.
I am your father.
As the old guy on the show, I've experienced a lot more life than Sam and Nate. And with that experience comes a little different perspective on mistakes and redemption. As I mentioned during our discussion, I believe that chapter 23 was the redemption of Lady Bo-Katan. It starts to really take shape after she admits to the refugees on Mandalore that she, in fact, had surrendered to Moff Gideon and turned over to him the Darksaber. You can sense the shame that she feels as she makes this revelation. And then the story comes full circle when at the end of the episode, Gideon makes the same offer again to Bo-Katan. This is the way life works. Whenever we make major life-altering decisions that take us off the path that God has laid out for us, he always seems to bring us back to that very same decision again later and gives us the chance to make it again. I've seen this over and over again in my life. So the question isn't whether or not we'll be given a second chance. The question is, will we learn from our mistakes and choose differently? Thank you for listening to Tatooine Sons, and we definitely appreciate that. We hope you'll follow the show on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. Give us a rating and a review on that app so others can find it. We've got something so much... I can't even begin to get the words together. I'm so excited about it that we're announcing on May the 4th. You're going to want to stay tuned to our social media. You're going to want to stay tuned to this podcast and the episodes coming up over the next couple of weeks as you'll learn how you can be a part of that announcement coming May the 4th and some things that will be happening all weekend long. We're super excited about that. You'll want to participate in those as well. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagrams, whatever, YouTube, all of those, and then share the show. Send this episode to other Mandalorian fans out there so that they can participate and hear our crazy predictions sure to go wrong. Next week, we're going to break down the finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian, chapter 24. I can't even begin to imagine what we're going to see in that episode, so I can't wait to talk about it with Sam and Nate. But until then,
may the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.